before drama surrounding the election, the saga of former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn captivated the business community and the world. Nearly 1 year after his dramatic escape from Japan, where he faced charges of financial misconduct, Ghosn is speaking out from his home base in Lebanon. In a new book titled The Time for Truth, he lays out his version of the events that led to his arrest and escape. I caught up with Ghosn yesterday and asked him whether he thought the new U.S. government would or should at some point intervene in his case and the ongoing cases of others in his orbit. Listen.
For me, as a foreigner, I'm a little bit surprised that there is an agreement between the U.S. and Japan on extradition, because knowing, I have lived in the United States, I've seen firsthand the legal system in the United States, and frankly, the defense exists, the judge are really the bosses, the prosecutor doing their job. It's a kind of very balanced system. But when you take a look at what's going on in Japan, where the prosecutor is the boss, the judge is a kind of nice organizer, and the defender have practically no position. I'm wondering what's the logic of two systems as different as the one existing in the United States and the one in Japan leads to cooperation between the two countries and extradition between the two countries. It's still a mystery for me.
Yeah, and of course you're referring to Michael Taylor, who has been extradited by the State Department and the DOJ, now pushing this federal judge to reject a last-minute request by him and his son to be extradited to Japan for helping you escape. What was your reaction to hearing that decision?
Shock. I was never expecting this to happen, because I have been unfortunately experimenting the system in Japan with all its incomprehensible, difficult to understand way of treating suspects, and sending two American citizens to go through the system by the administration, and I cannot think 2 seconds that they're not aware about the extremes of the Japanese system is for me very difficult to understand.
There's also Greg Kelly, who's dealing with the Japanese system as well, your former top aide who's on trial there for allegedly helping you underreport pay. Have you had any contact with him?
No, unfortunately no, because I would put him in jeopardy. He is forbidden by the prosecutor to have any contact with me. I can contact him, obviously, because now I'm free in Lebanon. This is also an interesting case where Greg Kelly has been held back in Japan for now 2 years. His trial has started on one charge, and the charge is complicity in not stating a compensation which has neither been decided nor paid, which is, again, very difficult to understand. He has been held back in Japan for 2 years. He's going to go for a trial which is going to last 1 year. God knows what's going to be the consequence of this trial. But, and I remind you that he has settled in the United States for a relatively modest amount so you have a total imbalance between what's going on in Japan and going on in the United States, which is fine, except that we're talking about U.S. citizens.
Right. What do you think is going to happen to him?
Look, I think if there was some kind of justice in Japan, he is obviously innocent. Now, if he's innocent, then Japan has a problem, because I've been arrested, by the way, for this same charge for no reason, which obviously will have a lot of consequences, not only on their system, but also on Nissan, which in a certain way colluded with the prosecutor to establish this machination, this law.
I read the book. I learned a lot about the history of the auto industry and the alliance that you built, Nissan, Renault, the success that you had. Why ultimately do you think they turned on you?
Well, because they did not want any additional convergence between Renault and Nissan. They were afraid that we would be heading toward a merger. And frankly, I was against the merger because I'm convinced from a management point of view that it would be a complete mistake to merge the two companies, because then we will end up with, first-rate citizen, second-rate citizen, which usually is at the base of the collapse of many mergers. I was against it, but they thought that I would collude with the French government to establish a merger, even though I was against it. And they decided just to get rid of me in a way which, frankly, is neither subtle nor very smart.
You call it old Nissan. You refer to for the company that you led. When did you realize that old Nissan was working against you?
Well, old Nissan had always worked against me since 1999. When I arrived in 1999, you can imagine that a lot of Japanese were against the fact that the foreigner would come, would turn around successfully a major company, and would become some kind of a role model in the industry of Japan, model for change, model for globalization, model for openness, etc. So they didn't like it. I knew they existed to the company. I didn't want to fight them. I want to fight them not by, persecuting them, but by demonstrating to them that this is the way to go, to a strong performance of the company, through a strong growth, through profit, and through a good vision and a nice strategy. Unfortunately, at a certain point in time, because of this exacerbation of a nationalistic point of view, due, I must also say, to maneuvers coming from the French side, which was not very smart, we ended up into the situation where this alliance is collapsing, even after 17 or 18 years of remarkable work. And this alliance, after having reached the status of the largest automotive group in the world in 2017 and 2018, is today crumbling.
What would you tell a foreign CEO that was considering taking a job atop a Japanese company?
Make sure before you go that the hostage justice system in Japan has changed. Frankly, I had some suspicion on the justice system in Japan when I've seen so many scandals of a Japanese company where never a Japanese executive was arrested or was tried. We had the Fukushima problem, we have the airbags of Takata, etc. And frankly, even though there have been a lot of casualties and a lot of, nobody really paid for that, which was surprising for me. But I never thought that we will end up with this system where the prosecutors prevailed in 99.4% of the cases. It's unbelievable. I mean, I didn't know that, even though I lived in Japan for 19 years. I never thought this statistic was serious, but having been through the system, I'm a little bit surprised that it's only 99.4%, that it's not 100%.
When you planned your escape, obviously it was daring, there's a lot written about it. Did you ever think it wouldn't work?
Oh yeah, I knew it was risky, but you know what, I was already in hell, so probably the risk is if I fell, I would be in a darker corner of hell. But if this was successful, then I would be in a completely different world. And that's why I think it was worth it, even though it was very risky. But all the tricks, the dirty tricks in a certain way used against me, that mean I was forbidden to see my wife or to talk to her. I was forbidden to see some of my children or talk to them. I didn't have any speedy trial. That means they started to tell me that the trial is going to last 4 to 5 years, and I would be happy if I end up only with one guilty. I mean, all the dirty tactics used to get me to a confession, show the real nature of the system in Japan. And the system, which, by the way, is fought internally in Japan by a lot of lawyers and some of the opposition party who are really consider that the system is not at the same level of the country. That means the country is not served by a system like this. So for me, getting out of the system was the only objective. And I was ready for this, for the ultimate sacrifice, which was, if it would fail, I knew that there would be no redemption.
Will you ever leave Lebanon again?
I hope so. I hope so. I will leave Lebanon. I probably will never go back to Japan unless they change the hostage justice system, their hostage justice system, and opposition party take the leadership of the country. That's my only hope if one day I want to come back to Japan. But I hope that I will be able to fight the red card, the red notice from Interpol, and be able to lead. And it's possible because you know that Interpol usually doesn't get involved into cases, in three cases. First, if there is a violation of human rights, well, in my case, I have plenty of demonstration of this. The second, if there is the political interference, in my case also, I have everything to prove it. And third, if the case does not, is not part of the normal local system, legal system, and even the Prime Minister of Japan said, I wish this story would have been sold into the boardroom of Nissan. So I have all the reasons to attract the attention of Interpol that they should just give up caring of this story, which means to remove the red card. And in this case, what's going to be left is only I cannot go to Japan.
Where would you want to go?
Well, obviously France, Brazil, United States, where my children live, and the children of my wife live. Everywhere in the world. I mean, I'm not unhappy to be stable in Lebanon today, but at a certain point in time, I want to recover my freedom of move. For a very simple reason is I'm innocent.
What else can we expect from you, Carlos, in the near term? Everybody's waiting for the James Bond style movie to come out.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a James Bond, but anyway, you're going to have a documentary and you're going to have a fiction. The documentary is going to be retracing exactly the facts of what happened, and you're going to have a lot of witnesses. In this kind of story, at the beginning, when the incidents happen, people are afraid to talk. Fortunately for me, little by little, they start to open their mouths and tell the truth, and that's what I'm hoping for. That at the end of the day, in front of the powerful attack launched by Nissan, Japanese prosecutors, supported by members of the Japanese government, and really, unfortunately, by a kind of silence from the French side, that people who have seen what happened and are able to witness and help me reestablish the truth.
Our thanks to Carlos Ghosn, speaking out for the first time since he arrived in Beirut in early January. By the way, we reached out to Nissan for comment on Ghosn's allegations there, and here's what they said. Nissan carried out a robust and thorough internal investigation that included external lawyers based on substantial and convincing evidence found in the investigation. Nissan established that Carlos Ghosn and Greg Kelly intentionally committed serious misconduct and significant violations of corporate ethics. The company contends that the facts surrounding the misconduct will be shown during the court proceedings and the law will take its course. Wilfred, won't happen for Carlos Ghosn as long as he stays in Beirut, and you heard him, as long as that Interpol red alert is out on him, the international organization that helps police try to arrest or locate people and then extradite them. Lebanon doesn't have extradition with Japan, which is why he's there. He has his freedom of speech as well, and he's obviously using it in interviews like this and in his new book, The Time for Truth, that's just out in France and around the world.
I thought it was such a good interview, and it reminds us of that extraordinary story in the first place. So many things jump out to me from it. I mean, one of them is him saying something that we all learned when the story came out, this amazingly surprising figure, that 99% conviction rate, and that despite him living and working there for so many years, he hadn't even really been fully aware of that. He gave a clear warning there to people that would potentially want to go and live and work in Japan. That probably is what must hurt the Japanese authorities the most, to see that that kind of message displayed out here. But the other interesting thing on that point is the statement you got there from Nissan saying, serious breaches of ethics and misconduct. I mean, maybe they'll prove that, but I think as members of other democratic developed societies, even if breaches of ethics are proven, it doesn't justify, in our understanding of what is fair in the eyes of the law and injustice, the level of solitary confinement for so long that he received there. And again, it just highlights that very different approach in Japan that so many of us weren't really fully aware of a couple of years ago.
Well, and that's exactly the case that Carlos Ghosn is trying to make, and that's what he calls the hostage justice system of Japan. Interestingly, we did get word recently of a foreign CEO going to lead a Japanese company for the first time really since this ordeal. Mitsubishi Chemical has courted a French CEO, despite the risks that Carlos Ghosn just laid out and that you just shared. And even Prime Minister Abe, before he left, despite all of this, at one point did say this kind of matter is really one, sort of regrettably, that's really for corporate governance, the sort of white-collar criminal investigation. The charge was about understating compensation for retirement, which Carlos vehemently denies. But even that, to your point, rising to the level of detention and punishment that he faced in Japan, I think it does call a lot of attention to that issue and to the system in Japan. We'll see if anything comes of it.
Well, yeah, and we do need to wait for the trial and see where evidence rises and whether he's proven to be guilty of something even in his absence. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily be proven guilty in that sense in the same way as we understand it, but that